The Argos are back on the gridiron this weekend in the Show Me State after an impressive opening act in 2016. What's in store for 2017? Find out with head coach Pete Shinnick as we preview the anticipated encore. Plus, we get an inside look at the offense with offensive coordinator Jammie Deese. And we get to know the revamped volleyball team, all in week 1 of the Coach Shinnick Show. Welcome into week 1 of the Coach Shinnick Show. Of course, with head coach Pete Shinnick, I'm Tommy Thrall. Great to be with you. Coach, great to have you back on again this year. It's probably been a long off season, but the off season after the first season, I can imagine there's a lot going on, isn't there?
A ton, and really, a lot of things that we had to take care of, a lot of things that we needed to improve upon, but it doesn't seem like it was that long ago that we filmed the last one, so it did go by quickly.
It doesn't seem long at all, as a matter of fact. So quick, in fact, you didn't even get a chance to work on your golf game all summer.
Yeah, did not get out once, which is rare, but I like the pieces of the puzzle that we've put together with this team, and I like where we're at right now.
Certainly got to work a lot on this football team, so let's talk about it. What did the offseason entail for this group?
Well, it really entailed from day one understanding what a year-long training process would look like, and that's really the challenge that we had. Basically, after we got done playing North Alabama and then West Georgia, our last 2 games. Guys, you look at them, you look at us, they're a team that's older, mature, they've been working out longer than you have. We've got to look like that in order to be able to hold up in this league. That was number one.
Yeah, is really the size, is that the biggest difference from kicking off year 1 to kicking off in year 2?
I think so, and I think the speed on the field as well. I think we've added some really quality additions to our program, both in the high school players that we've added as well as some transfers.
You talked about managing expectations and really not trying to have any true expectations last year. All right, you've played a year. Now you're on to the second season. Do you put some expectations on this group now?
Really, we want to be a better football team, and we want to be a more sound football team. We don't want to turn the ball over as much. We don't want, there's a lot of things, that play into both offensively and defensively that, the expectations are raised. But really, I've said this a lot. Year 2 is a hard year. You don't get away with anything. Everybody knows who you are, and there's some people that we upset last year and some people that are irritated at us. We're going to get a better game out of them. We've got to be a better product of ourselves. So we want to just continue to improve while at the same time understanding, what's in front of us.
One of those teams I would think is Missouri S&T, and we'll talk a little bit about them coming up. I want to get started with the quarterbacks. Caleb Nobles did a great job year 1. Now he's gone. You've got 2 guys that have been battling it out since the spring, Mike Beaudry and Gray Jackson. How's that competition worked between those 2 guys?
Been very good, very competitive, and both of them, are getting better every day. So it's now going to be who, has improved the most and who has complete control of the offense in order for us to, put that in them. I think game 1, you're going to see, both of them in the process and then kind of see how it settles itself out. But very pleased with how far both of them have come from last fall to this spring to now in our fall preseason practices.
I'm guessing there's a level of comfort going into, camp knowing who your starting quarterback is. But are there some advantages to having it be between a few guys?
Well, I think, anytime you have competition, and even though, you take our running back spot, we've got a guy that, listed as the starter, but we also have competition there. You look at our DBs. We have guys that played well and that were listed as starters, but we brought in some transfers. So across the board, I don't care what position it is, competition's good.
Last year, they were second. This team was second in the conference in passing yards, threw for over 300 yards a game. Does that put pressure on these guys, or are we going to see a different offense this year?
Well, you're going to see a version of last year's offense, but, part of those throwing yards were because we had to, because we could not run the ball very well. And the other part of that is Caleb just did a great job taking what the defense gave him and putting our wide receivers really in very favorable positions to get some yardage. We'd love to throw for 300 a game as long as we could run for more than the 100 that we did.
Well, let's talk about that, because a big part of that was the offensive line. You knew going into the season last year that was going to be a question mark, because not necessarily skill, but age. So now they're a year older. What's different about that group this year?
Well, size and strength is the first thing. I think most guys have gained weight. They're a little heavier. They're a little stronger. Their benches and cleans and squats went up, as would be expected when you start 5 redshirt freshmen. And that's really what we did a year ago.
Is there more depth there?
Most definitely. Where last year, it was kind of sketchy if one guy, got hurt or what took place. We feel like we've got a solid 2 deep for the first time in the program. And we feel like, if a guy, we have to sub somebody in, and we'll rotate some guys around, that the level doesn't drop off as much as it did a year ago.
That does a lot for the whole offense, doesn't it?
It really does, and I think you've seen that in our scrimmages. You've seen that in our first practices, where the run game, has produced, some positive results. Where last year we were on a lot of stalemates. We were just on a lot of get in the way. This year, expecting a little more movement, expecting a little more push out of the big guys up front.
Talk about the running game. Who do you have back, and who are some new faces we may see in the backfield?
Well, we have Chris Schwartz back, and he was our leading rusher, and really the last 5 games of the year I think did a fantastic job. Averaged over 5 yards a carry. Tim Bellinger, who started the season for us, and really I think we kind of wore him down maybe a little bit. We've got a different role for him. And then Anthony Johnson from Pace High School has come in and really helped us out and put us, I think, in a pretty good situation.
Obviously, being a local kid, there's a lot of excitement with Anthony. Is he a guy that can come in right away and make an impact as a freshman, or do you try to ease him in?
We'll kind of take game 1 and kind of see how he's feeling, what it looks like. Leroy Wilson also returns. So we've got some guys that can carry the load until we feel Anthony's ready. But he stepped up from day 1 and really, established himself as a guy that we can count on.
We'll talk about the receivers with Jammie Deese coming up in a little bit, the Argo offensive coordinator. But when we come back, let's talk volleyball. They're kind of a revamped squad this year after an excellent finish to last season. We cover that when we come back on the Coach Shinnick Show on the UWF Sports Network.
We are not here to drift. We were born to move, to change, to jump in, dive deep, make waves, break through. We were born to splash. The University of West Florida is America's best university for making a splash. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash? We will never settle for the kiddie pool. We are destined for the vast ocean of opportunities that await us. We were born to make a splash. At the University of West Florida, you can make a discovery, make a difference, make a splash. So take a deep breath and dive in. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash? The world is our ocean, and we are here to make a splash, to dive deep, to create, to develop, to break through. At the University of West Florida, there's no limit to how you can make a splash. Don't just sit on shore, jump in. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash?
Welcome back to the Coach Shinnick Show. The Argo women's volleyball team is coming off a regular season GSC title and a deep run into the NCAA tournament, one that came to an end after a tight match against top seed Palm Beach Atlantic in the regional semis. That team was special, but head coach Melissa Walter has plenty of confidence in a revamped squad coming into this season.
We're excited. I'm very excited about this group. They're obviously very new. We have 8 new players and 9 returners, so it looks completely different. And I think, to me, it's just it's one of those years where I think as the weeks go by, we're really going to get a chance to see what this team can be. And I think that part is fun. There's always different time periods as you coach a program for as long as I have, where there's new eras, there's eras that end, and this definitely is a new era, but I like what this group is about. I'm excited to see what they can be. When you have a group that has this many players that have never, literally never played together before, you're going to have growing pains. But I'm pleased to see that they're working through those things, they're communicating, they're doing exactly what we're asking of them. And we're seeing some great practices out of some players, and then the next practice it'll be somebody else's practice. So I think the sky's the limit for this group. I really do. I think there's just tremendous pieces of the puzzle that are just ready to be put together. What we're trying to do right now is figure out our own identity and not be reliant on one player. And I think that's probably what's going to push us into being a team early that's hard to stop, just because I think I'm going to be surprised in matches. I'd like to think I know everything about them, but right now I don't. So it's going to be a learning process, and yeah, we definitely have weapons. Our blocking has been really good. I mean, we were posting 3 blocks per set in the last scrimmage that we played, and that's obviously very high. I also think we have great ball control. It's probably one of the better ball handling teams I've ever had. They can just cover a lot of court. So we're still working on our offense. I think that's just the nature of the beast when you're training new players. We've got a returning setter in Mo. We have a new setter. Well, she's not really new, but she may be potentially new to the lineup in Brogan, and so they're both trying to figure out where the hitters are good, and that offense takes time. The Hampton Invitational is the tournament we've run for years. We always like to try to open up at home. I think there's significant advantages to playing on your home court right away and not having to travel that first weekend. We're excited to play teams that have been on the Elite 8 stage, and this team, I haven't really put any parameters on what they should or shouldn't be accomplishing that opening weekend. And I'd rather come out and play some of the best right away and see how we stack up against them. But we're excited to host the tournament, excited to have some great teams come and see the area and be on this beautiful campus. And we're just hoping that it's a really good volleyball weekend all around.
Well, we look forward to seeing Melissa's team back on the court. Of course, they're at home this weekend. You can get the full schedule at goargos.com. Want to welcome in now Argonaut football offensive coordinator Jammie Deese. Welcome to the show, sir. Great to have you on.
Pleasure.
Well, I know it's an exciting time for you guys. You're certainly anxious to get back on the field. A very explosive offense last year. What's the difference year 1 to year 2 with your squad?
Well, I feel like we're a little bit wiser, more mature. Guys have actually, gotten stronger, so that's a credit to the weight room, Coach Morgan, what he's done. So we're anxious to see the big boys get up front and move a little bit. So we're anticipating using those guys up front to execute a good run game this year.
Well, talk about that offensive line. Coach Shinnick talked about it a little bit, and he's certainly confident in that unit. So what does that do to open up the playbook a little bit more this year with those guys maybe being a little stronger, more effective up front?
Well, I think it does a lot because, it's one of those things where they're not seeing it for the first time. They've had experience. They know what it's like to be in Wahoo Stadium on the road in those different atmospheres. And I just think, being stronger, having the chance to understand each other and communicate better makes the biggest difference. And we're seeing in practice, guys are gelling, guys have a good language with one another, and they're having fun. So I think the chemistry's there, which is what we're excited about.
Some familiar guys in the backfield for this team. Do you expect to use them a little differently than maybe their role was last year?
Yeah, I think we'll have a more established unit in terms of, I think Chris Shores has been great running the ball all fall camp, and we intend to have him a lot used primarily as a running back, and we've had some guys come in, step into their roles, and begin to identify where they are in the offense and how they fit and embrace those roles, which is most important.
Gray Jackson, Mike Beaudry, 2 guys that are both very mobile quarterbacks. Does that give your offense a little more, I guess, does that make it a little bit more dynamic?
Yeah, I think the more you can do offensively when you have a quarterback that gives that running aspect, you're able to counter what the defense does. If they try to take away the run, you can obviously pass because we do that offensively. But whenever they try to take away the pass like they did last year, now we have a quarterback that's able to tuck the ball and run. I just think that gives us a different dynamic.
Do you try to stay away from that? I know it's a nice luxury to have. They're obviously going to have to run some on their own. So do you try to scale back how many design runs you have with those guys to try to keep them healthy, or is that a big part of the offense and you've got 2 options?
It's part of the offense that you got to live with. Again, you got to help yourself as an offensive coordinator when you're game planning what is the defense trying to take away from you. And if our quarterbacks, that's why we have more than one quarterback we feel we can run with, and you evolve the offense around their strengths. So, we obviously don't bang them up in practice a lot, but you try to reserve some for the game. But, if our quarterbacks can run and have success, that's what we're going to do.
Does the offense look a little different when Beaudry's in there as opposed to Jackson, or do they both run very similar playbooks?
Similar playbooks. When we run practice, we don't script it based on one guy in there, one guy not. So we just let it flow when we see what they can do, what they can handle, and we've been very impressed with what they've done this fall.
Let's talk about the receivers now. That's a unit that was very strong last year. Great guy to get the ball to him last year, and Caleb Nobles as well. So a lot of those guys are back. Talk about that group.
Again, it's just like our offensive line. 1 year makes all the difference in the world. We're excited about where they've come from. They've gotten bigger. We're actually watching film from last year, Missouri S&T, and guys are kind of just ragging on each other a little bit about what their releases look like and just how small they look. So, just seeing how physically mature they are, how they develop, and gotten bigger, faster, stronger. I think it's going to be a huge dynamic. And some of the guys who barely played last year, the roles they're stepping into now is just showing how far they've come.
Not a lot of new weapons there, but you do have a new piece. Talk about the addition at wide receiver you guys have.
Carlos Duclos transferred in for us. He's a guy that has tremendous speed. He's been very explosive, and when he's in there, he's been a little gimpy from time to time, but when he's in there, you'll notice his speed right away. He's probably our fastest guy on the team, so it's a benefit having him playing wide receiver.
All right, can't wait to see it all come together this weekend on Saturday.
We're excited, and we're expecting a good game.
All right, thanks so much. Jammie Deese joining us. More with head coach Pete Shinnick when we come back. This is the Coach Shinnick Show on the UWF Sports Network.
We were born to move, to change, to jump in, dive deep, make waves, break through. We were born to splash. The University of West Florida is America's best university for making a splash. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash? We will never settle for the kiddie pool. We are destined for the vast ocean of opportunities that await us. We were born to make a splash. At the University of West Florida, you can make a discovery, make a difference, make a splash. So take a deep breath and dive in. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash? The world is our ocean, and we are here to make a splash, to dive deep, to create, to develop, to break through. At the University of West Florida, there's no limit to how you can make a splash. Don't just sit on shore, jump in. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash?
Welcome back to the Coach Shinnick Show. We're joined by head coach Pete Shinnick once again. New defensive coordinator this year, so let's talk about the defense a little bit. Let's start with Darian Doolin. Where'd you find him?
Darian had been the defensive coordinator at Abilene Christian for about the last 6 years. He'd also been a junior college head coach prior to that, and then had been at the Division II level as a coordinator. And really, when Corey Sanders left and got the opportunity to go to Western Michigan, just wanted to find the right fit for our staff, right fit for our program, and also an opportunity to kind of expand on, some of the stuff that Corey had installed and really build upon that 3-down lineman package. And been really pleased with what Darian's done so far.
You talk about being the right fit. What does that mean for this program? What are you looking for in that position?
Well, we're always looking for, number one, a great example to our players. I think every guy on our staff just does a fantastic job of representing UWF and Argonaut athletics. And that's really, when we talk about fit, we talk about culture. Dave Scott's vision for this athletic department is building champions for life. We want to hire people who really fit that mold, and Darian very much does.
This was an aggressive defense this year. Does that continue under Darian?
It does, and we've stayed with the 3-down line, and which obviously gives you opportunity for people to come from all different angles. That was one of the things that we established last year and wanted to continue with that.
What other wrinkles may we see in the defense this year? Are there some other things that may look a little different?
Yeah, I think you're going to see, some different coverages, which I think will be fun for our opponents to try to figure out, what's transpiring and what's taking place. And that was one of the things that Darian has done extremely well over the years. And again, we're excited to get started with him and have him call our first game.
playing defense in the Gulf South Conference may be one of the toughest things to do. There's a lot of offense in this conference. It reminds me a little bit of the Big 12 and what that used to be. So what did you learn last year about how to try to slow down all these teams around the GSC?
Well, like you said, every week you're getting challenged, and I don't care who you play. There's a dynamic player out there, and whether it's Mississippi College or North Alabama, they've got somebody who can do something. And you got to be very smart, and you got to be read your keys and do it well. What hurt us, I think, later on in the year were the big plays. Were the dynamic offensive plays. And that's something that if we play our keys and we do what we need to do and we're in position, our eyes are right, that stuff will take care of itself. And got to be able to do that in this league, because you can go from 0-0 to 14-0 in a heartbeat.
How much does just having another year of experience kind of sort some of that stuff out?
Well, I think it's huge. I think guys that made mistakes are back. Guys that made big plays are back. They've learned from both what that took, what they need to do, what position they need to be in. And some guys, in high school, the coach may call something and you're like, okay, I see it, I'm going to go after it. In this league, if you do that, you're probably going to be wrong.
Well, it's a tough league to learn in the hard way, isn't it? It certainly can be anyways. Plenty more still to get to. When we come back, we're going to chat about Missouri S&T. That's next on the slate. It's all coming up on the Coach Shinnick Show on the UWF Sports Network.
We are not here to drift. We were born to move, to change, to jump in, dive deep, make waves, break through. We were born to splash. The University of West Florida is America's best university for making a splash. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash? We will never settle for the kiddie pool. We are destined for the vast ocean of opportunities that await us. We were born to make a splash. At the University of West Florida, you can make a discovery, make a difference, make a splash. So take a deep breath and dive in. The University of West Florida. How will you make a splash?
Welcome back to the Coach Shinnick Show. Missouri S&T on the docket this week. You faced them once. They came to us last year. Now you get to see how long of a drive Rolla, Missouri is from Pensacola, Florida. That's a tough trip. You guys went to Chowan last year. That's a long drive. Talk about how you try to break up a trip like this, and because how long are you guys anticipating that to be? Yeah,
I think it's 12 hours, 11:45, something like that. Not something that you want to do in one day. The good news is it is a night game, but we'll practice here Thursday, grab dinner, get on the road, drive up to Mississippi, stay in Starkville, get up the next day, and then you're not in a rush. You've banged out about 4.5 hours of the trip, 4 hours of the trip, and then you can kind of work your way up there, which, we'll get up, we'll have meetings, we'll do some things in the morning with the players, get on the road, practice. We've got to practice in Arkansas State, so that's fun for our guys, see a different facility, that type of thing. And then you end up at Rolla, later on in the evening, get up. Again, it is a night game, and so you just kind of pace that. And, our trainers do a great job of keeping us hydrated. Kent Morgan and his staff do a great job. We get out of the bus, we'll stretch a little bit. So we've taken a few long trips before, know what it looks like, and really just trying to keep the guys fresh through the process.
Is it a little different than what you guys did on the way to Chowan last year?
Well, it is. Chowan, because Chowan was just a little bit shorter, and we did that all in one day. And that didn't work out well, so we're not doing that again.
Fair enough. How do you pass the time? What's your favorite bus activity? We've all been on long bus trips before, so what's your favorite pastime on the bus?
If there's a good movie, you're loving that, especially if it's something that you haven't seen or something that you really like. And with guys with iPads and computers now, every trip we took last year, there were very few just playing on the the movie screen in the buses. I think the bus company we're using this year has some to be able to get some ESPN games and stuff like that. It's always fun to watch football.
Right.
So that's always good.
It always gets you fired up. I didn't know if there was a go-to movie that, hey, this gets us ready for battle, and that's what you try to show. No? Nothing like that. Okay. On their own when it comes to that. Well, let's talk about the things that matter. There's actually a game at the end of this trip. You guys are playing Missouri S&T. They put up a good fight last year. It was a great showing at home for the home opener of the program's history. What do you expect out of those guys this year now that you've seen them and they've seen what this program's all about?
Well, they were a young team last year just like us, so I think they've gotten better. They have recruited some good guys in as well. They've got some transfers of note, and they had a receiver last year that was injured in our game that is very fast and very speedy. I think he'll give us, everything that, we thought we'd get from him last year. Very difficult team, in my opinion, to prepare for. Number one, they do something very unorthodox on defense. We did not have a rushing yard last year. Part of that was we snapped the ball over Caleb's head about 5 or 6 times and lost yards, but the other is we just didn't run for a lot either. And then offensively, they just make you account for the entire field. They've got a bunch of trick plays that they can pull out at any point in time. They'll run a reverse to set up the reverse pass, to set up the double reverse pass. They just do things that our defense is going to have to be great with its eyes and very dialed in and disciplined.
Their quarterback's a year older this year. You saw him last year. It's the same guy. What do you see out of him?
Well, he continued to get better throughout the course of the year. And as a matter of fact, they shared reps with another guy that they actually moved to wide receiver this year. That's how much they believe in this quarterback, and that's what they think he's capable of. He did a really good job against us. We got after him a little bit. We're going to have to do that same thing, disrupt a little bit of what he's doing. But again, I see this as a much improved offense on their end and a very, very difficult defense to prepare for.
You talked about a couple of the playmakers that they've got at wide receiver. Braxton Graham's one. Spencer Elrod's the guy, I believe, that got hurt last year playing here. What do you see and how do you kind of plan for those guys?
Well, good news is I think we got a little speed, in our wide receiver group, which our defense has been going against now for 15, 16 days. That helps to understand what that speed looks like and where it can be used and how you can get burnt with it and how you can protect yourself with it. The other part is you got to know where those guys are all the time. This is an offense that likes to feature guys. They have go-to people. Those two will be, two of their top targets. Again, I think they're going to put more speed on the field than they did a year ago. We just got to be disciplined to know where they are.
Does it help a little bit that they were a pretty young team and a lot of the guys are back this year? Or does that actually make it tougher because those guys are a year older, so they've got a little more experience this year as you try to prepare for a week 1 opponent? Yeah,
I think it makes our job more difficult. It really does. And I think, some of our guys, all they remember is the score. Some of them remember, some big plays. And it's like you've really got to, forget that. Brand new team, brand new opportunity. We've got to do everything right to be in the game. And, we're the ones that have to travel this year, not them.
Right. All right, Coach, thanks so much. Good luck coming up this weekend, all right?
Thank you.
I'm sure you guys are ready to lace them up, put the pads back on, and get right back at it. That's all the time we have for this week on the Coach Shinnick Show. Kickoff is set for 7 o'clock from Rolla, Missouri. Of course, you can listen to that on our new radio home, beginning with the pregame show at 6:30 on Choice 106.9 WRNE 980 AM. Well, thanks to head coach Pete Shinnick and our entire crew. I'm Tommy Thrall. Thanks for watching this week on the Coach Shinnick Show on the UWF Sports Network.